You and Vince Clarke, you gave us so many hits as we saw there, but how did that musical partnership come about in the first place?
Well, I moved down to London in 1985 when I was like 19 years old. And I moved there with the intent of joining a band. So I joined a band which was a 4-piece. Then I left with the bass player in the band, so I was used to a duo. We weren't really getting anywhere. We had 2 shows. One was in a park in Ealing with being pelted by the builders with eggs. And the next one was in a Domino's club in Southall. And they said, oh, we think you're going to be like Boy George, you know, the people. But I answered an advert in Melody Maker, and it just so happened it was for Vince Clarke. And I was a huge fan of his, and I was thinking maybe I should write him a letter and see if he needs a singer. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I went down, I thought I'd really enjoy myself on the day. And they called the next day and they said, would you like the job? So I said, yes, please. And they put me on a £150 retainer because Vince was working on the assembly project. So I went on a holiday to Ibiza, my first abroad holiday.
Amazing.
It's the way to do it. It's the way to do it.
Fast forward to modern day, and you stood the test of time. Like a lot of bands, they break up along the way. I don't know, tiffs happen. We won't get into that. But you and Vince stood the test of time, working and friendship. Do you have a tip to how?
Vince was kind of, you know, I really wanted to work with him because I was a huge Yazoo fan, and he was in Depeche Mode as well before that. So he had a good track record. And then when we started working together, the Wonderland album came out, our first album, which had Ola Moore on it, which was only a hit in France and Australia, nowhere else. So Vince literally started from scratch again with me, because the album was a flop, and we started driving around in a van and going to universities and doing shows and doing PAs in clubs dressed as cowboys. So it was kind of, it was very hit and miss in the beginning, but he stood by me, and then we started collaborating on the second album, and the first song that we wrote properly together was Sometimes, and that was like #2 for ages, you know. So it kind of started from there, really.
Yeah, and you've always got on along the way.
Yeah, you know, I mean, he's a fantastic guy. He's really diplomatic, doesn't have a temper, you know, and I think we just kind of cemented the whole thing by playing live all the time, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you can do that, you can get through anything, especially those university gigs and the PAs dressed as cowboys. That builds a band, I'd imagine. Let's go back to 1992 when you released the EP of remixed ABBA songs. And you're kind of credited with that ABBA resurgence that happened in the 90s. But what was it about ABBA's music that made you want to do that EP in the first place?
Well, we've done ABBA as well. The Gimme 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 was the B-side of Ola Moore in 1985, and then so we'd always enjoyed playing them live, and you know, we were quite had a following in Sweden as well, so I would go there and start singing on the stage. Everybody screamed when I kissed the teacher, you know, and they were like going mad because it's an ABBA song. So I always said to Vince, we really must do ABBA because, and I'm glad that we didn't do an album's worth because we got drowned in ABBA for like a while, you know. But I just think, you know, I was a huge fan of theirs in school. I studied music, and they're fantastic songwriters, and they were writing in their second language. English being their second language, and I just thought they were, you know, they took their inspiration from, you can hear from the Beach Boys and, you know, kind of folk music, and I just like the cross it's coming over from Europe, and no band from Europe ever made a dent in the UK, you know, so it's incredible.
And they have a lot to thank you for, in fairness.
No, not really. I think it was just very good timing on our part, you know. It was happening, and we just did it at the right time.
The timing,
lightning in a bottle, yeah.
For sure, and the personnel were right. But another big hit of yours that most people would know, A Little Respect.
Yeah.
And people would sing along, but they might not know the meaning behind it. Can you let us know the meaning?
Well, people kind of say to me sometimes, "Oh, is that a gay anthem?" And it wasn't really written in that way. It was more. I love those kind of euphoric feelings that you get from singing, which is almost like, you know, I went to kind of a cathedral school, even though I'm not christened, but I went to cathedral school, and hymns was all part of going to the school, you know, so I love singing hymns, and because they're very spiritual, and to me, a great pop song is like spiritual song that's done up tempo, you know. So that's what A Little Respect is really, and it's just about telling people everybody's the same. Doesn't matter who you are, you know. Doesn't matter who you're with. It's kind of, as long as you have respect for yourself, respect for the other person, we're going to get along fine.
I love that.
You know?
Absolutely, love it. You were diagnosed with HIV in 1998, which is something you've been very open about throughout your career, which I'm sure has helped countless numbers of people. But I'm wondering what that period of your life was like, because thankfully we're at a point now where we're much more open about it and there's open conversations, but you were at the height of your career and this was at a time when there was also so much stigma around that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very strange period for me. And also, you know, I'd kind of, you know, when Erasure first started, I was like 20 years old. And then at that point, we were flying around the world. You know, I went to San Francisco, and it was kind of, I always felt like it was, to me, that was the period of the death of the clone, because you had these clone men that kind of looked like Freddie Mercury, you know, and I felt like you could feel ghosts walking around in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And that was kind of all the people that had passed already, you know. And my partner there of 25 years, we had lots and lots of friends very close to us that had succumbed to HIV and passed away. So it was like this thing was kind of encroaching upon us. And then in 1995, I found out I was HIV positive from the doctor. And I kind of knew that I was, because you can feel it in your body. It's like you know, you can kind of feel this invasion almost. And at that time, after ABBA, after we'd had Always, I said to God, please can you switch it off? This is all a bit much, you know? Yeah. And that's what happened. And I was thinking like, oh no, I didn't mean like that much, you know, but actually it was good for me, because I had so many things wrong with me physically. So my body was closing down. So I was very scared because of all those other people before us. And thankfully, being born at the right moment, we had access to the retroviral therapy, and it worked for me. It was miraculous. So even within 3 to 6 months, the turnaround in my physical body was incredible. So, you know, you just have to take stock of everything. Yeah. And it makes you grow up to a certain extent. I don't think, you know, I don't have my own children or anything, so it's, you know, I'm very young.
Yeah, you're very young, and you've been on some journey. Only a month ago, you were recognised for it with a Lifetime Achievement Award at the British LGBTQ Awards. It must be really nice to be recognised like that. I mean, it is really lovely, you know. You kind of feel like, you know, 2 generations have passed. You know, I've got 5 sisters and brothers, and they all have babies, apart from my eldest sister, and their children have got babies. So it's the same on the gay scene. It's like the young people, they don't know who you are. You know, they don't have to know who you are. You know, it's not their responsibility to know who you are. But I think, you know, you should have a certain amount of history, and something like getting this award. Just for me, I'm just glad that the work's recognised, because it is a lot of extra stuff that you sort of do. You know, I'm glad that I have a purpose with the music, because I don't think there's any point in doing it otherwise. You know, but I mean, it's a really good honour, but you can't let it go to your head or anything. You know, it's just. Yeah.
But it is deserved. I think you are being again modest again.